I love consuming information.
Yeah.
Like it's fun. The dopamine hit for me is the consumption of new ideas, new things I had never learned before. And all that's great. That's great that I'm well studied and I like to research and I like to study and do those things. That's great. But if I never do anything with it, what really ultimately good is that doing for me?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think what people miss is they just wish and want. And when you're in that, we'll call it a high, right? Your dopamine high is in that moment, you've got to make a decision that like, okay, first step is putting this down on paper, writing it out, what that goal is. And while you're excited about it, while you're going through that feeling is, okay, now let's say, okay, what are the steps that I need in building a plan, putting it on paper so that you have something tangible.
Dude, I know I sent this to you a few days ago, but you have to watch. You know who Mike Glover is?
Navy SEAL, right?
Yeah, he's either Navy SEAL or Green Beret. Do you know who Mike Glover is, Scott? No. He's fairly well known online. Like we said, former SEAL.
Like me?
Yeah, like Tyler, former SEAL like Tyler.
Like 800 followers?
Yeah, no, he's got a few more than that. But he also does a tactical training. He has a business that helps with tactical training for police forces and different things. I don't think they do. I think he does actually have a civilian arm to it. So he helps civilians, just be more aware, be, ready for any emergency situation. So anyway, he put out a YouTube video. I think it's been a week and a half now. And he broke down the Uvalde shooting footage. Have either one of you guys seen that?
You sent it to me. I have not yet.
Well, I'm just saying, have you seen that they released all the footage?
Yeah.
The whole cam and all that?
Yeah, no, I watched that, and it was hard to watch.
Yeah. And so he goes through, and it's like an hour and a half video. It's a long video, but he goes through from a tactical perspective and basically breaks down the film like we used to do in football, and talks through all the mistakes that were made, what they could have done better. And he doesn't pull any punches. Like he kind of goes in hard on the Uvalde Police Department and just all the mistakes that were made. They were talking about how the shooter, he crashed his truck. I don't know if you remember this part.
Yeah, outside.
Crashed his truck, shoots at two people that were coming to help him. They didn't know. They just started to crash. So it was a funeral home. And two of the workers of the funeral home were walking towards the scene to see what was going on, try to help him. Shoots at them. The school is across the street. Gets out of the truck, starts walking to the school with a rifle. Apparently, there was a police officer that had his own rifle, had the guy in his sights as he's walking through towards the school, has the guy in his crosshairs, and asks his superior, "Can I take the shot?" And when he turns around because he didn't hear what his superior said, turns around to get the answer, turns back, the guy was already in the school. So they could have killed him before he even stepped into the school. But because of, now again, I am no expert by any means whatsoever, but I got to think there was a moment of
hesitation.
Doubt, right, of am I justified?
Yeah.
Now, Mike goes over the law and the rules, and if you know that by heart, which you probably should if you're in law enforcement.
He was completely justified.
They would have been completely justified. Because of the two gunshots, because he was headed towards the school, they would have been 100% justified to end it right there. And he didn't because of the indecision. Because you know how it is now. And again, I'm not an expert, but it had to factor in, dude, all these people are getting chastised across the world for these unlawful shootings, which are actually lawful. And that hesitation.
But the media says it's unlawful.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. So the court of public opinion would have said, had their own take on it. And so that had to have played. So anyway, so the kid gets into the school. Within 3 minutes of him getting to school, the first officers were there.
Yeah.
Like they were inside the school, and this is what the footage shows. And it took them over an hour to finally go into the actual classroom and neutralize them and put them down. So so he just goes through the whole, different. So first, I think it's Uvalde Police Department was there. Then more tactical, like SWAT team type people come, and yeah, it's pretty wild.
Well, and you look at what happened at Dallas Love Field just recently, right? Yeah. Woman walks in, starts firing up in the air, and then starts firing at officers. And they were there and shot her within minutes.
Within seconds.
Yeah.
She's kind of walking around. I saw the video just 2 days ago. She's walking around. She fires 2 or 3 in the air, pop, pop, pop. And then literally the next thing you know, she's on the ground. And there's an officer who has his gun pointed at her. I mean, they did it quick. Like I was very impressed with the response time there. Now, obviously that's their job, but I'm just saying.
That's not national news.
No, it's not.
We're 2 days after. And again, yes, luckily no lives were taken.
Right.
But where are we about, okay, hey, look, what if officers weren't there with firearms? We don't hear about that.
Yeah.
We're not hearing that side of the story right now, like the good that just did. I mean, it happens every day across the country.
Yeah.
And we don't hear about that.
Right.
Now, again, sorry to go on, but this is 100% was mismanaged.
Yeah. Yeah. And so if you're interested in watching that video, again, it's a long video. Just type in Mike Glover Uvalde shooting in YouTube. It's the one that I think it's already got like 1.3 or 4 million views, something like that. So obviously we're not the only ones who've heard of it.
Yeah.
But it really was fascinating how he broke down, and it was heartbreaking too, as you alluded to. There's a part where he like blurs out the camera, because what it is, it's the officers after they shoot the shooter, they're pulling kids out of the classroom. And so he obviously blurred that out.
Yeah, hour and 43 minutes. Yeah, 1.3 million views.
Yeah. And what's the title of it exactly?
Cowardice and lack of training are not the same.
Yeah. So he goes after it. And again, he's fair in his assessment.
Yeah.
But he's very direct in the point that, the whole defund the police type thing. This is what happens with undertraining, with lack of funding. These are the types of things that can happen. So anyway, very random, but I was just watching that this morning, so maybe.
So again, give us a spoiler. I mean, is his stance that it's lack of training or it's cowardice?
Yes. He said the lack of training led to cowardice. Yeah. It was his assessment.
Yeah,
and
that's fair.
So because he said, and we talk about confidence is bred through practice.
Yeah. And
if those officers had trained and drilled and really done this on their own time, the confidence which would have. Yeah. And he's not just some slappy, armchair quarterback. This guy was in combat doing these type of missions constantly during his career. And now he teaches this for a living. So it's not just some slapdick teaching, nonsense. Like it's legitimate. So very sad, but anyway, not what we're going to necessarily talk about today. No. What we are talking about today is part 3 of our study of the book, The Molecule of More. And if you've missed parts 1 and part 2, pause this episode, go back and listen to those first. It'll lay the groundwork. Week 1, we talked about love and desire. Last week, we talked about politics. That was a fun conversation of how dopamine plays such a heavy role in politics. Today, we're going to talk about how dopamine plays a role in dominating your world and creativity. And I thought these were 2 interesting subsections. But before we jump into the book, we do want to thank our partner, Choctaw Casino Resort. We'll thank Sleep Number in just a second. But Choctaw Casino Resort, we talk about it all the time, guys. Yeah. It's freaking hot out here in Texas. Yeah. And it's hot in Oklahoma. Yeah. If you want to escape the heat, I can't think of any better place than a place that has massive 3,000 slot machines, table games, tons of air conditioning. Or if you do want to brave the elements and go outside, massive new resort-style pool. Any drink you can think of, swim-up bar. It truly is an oasis in the middle of Oklahoma. It's pretty wild.
And if your house right now, like if you're having some AC issues, which I know a bunch of people are, and ERCOT is telling you, okay, set your thermostat to 78 degrees. What? You want to talk about weight loss? There we go.
Right.
But
that's a good point. Crank your AC up to 80 and leave the house and go to Choctaw.
That's right. But do that. Or here's the deal. What if like your HVAC unit is on the fritz? It's not working like it should. It's hard to maintain right here. Guess what? Choctaw's giving away over $2 million. You can be one of those people. Not only can you buy a new unit, you can upgrade that thing.
I just
plenty of dough left over.
We just had to replace both units at our house a few months ago. It's a pretty penny. So I could have used some of that $2 million that they're giving away. We say it all the time. What other entertainment venue is giving you money to be there?
Yeah.
So you want to battle inflation? You want to fight inflation? Go to Choctaw and win you some money.
That's right. I'm all about it. But here's the deal. Coming up, football season right around the corner, training camps, they're all reporting. Go to their sports bar is unbelievable. No better place to watch a game. Unfortunately, we went last year and watched the Cowboys lose in the playoffs.
Yeah. But it was a blast. We still had a great time.
It was so fun. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can't imagine how much more miserable it would have been in my own house watching that, which I enjoy watching football in my house. But it was so fun there. The people were great. Just plan a trip to go on a Sunday, go up, have a nice meal, watch the games. And, I mean, literally it's like TV's 360 in there. And it is just an incredible place. But get up there this fall.
Yep, that's right. And then we also want to thank our partner, Sleep Number. What was your sleep score last night?
Dude, I've been struggling. My recovery scores have been garbage.
I'll go through mine real quick. Last night my score was a 74.
Good for you.
I was in bed for 6 hours and 55 minutes. But what's interesting is it breaks down the type of sleep that you have. Like, for instance, it says time to fall asleep took me 27 minutes, which I don't think that's accurate because I fell asleep pretty fast. But restful sleep was 5 hours and 33 minutes of that 6 hours and 55. Restless sleep was 55 minutes. I had 55 minutes of restless sleep.
Yeah, interesting.
And I felt myself awake, but you're not really mindful of just because you're conscious or not conscious doesn't mean you're not, restful sleep. So
yeah,
that's an interesting feature that they have. But yeah,
what's your average right now?
Average is 74, so I was right at my average.
Yeah. Okay.
My best was 95 ever.
See, I've only got my best is a 94. Is the best.
Whitney had a 99 the other day.
No.
Yeah, she's a sleep champ.
Just Whitney, no excuses now. You're completely rested.
She's a sleep champ. So, of course, we're talking about the 360 smart beds. Guys, the technology they're utilizing is literally replacing old sleep study technology. These massive units that you had to be hooked up to all these different cables and wires. They're replacing all of that with their 360 smart bed. Right. And allowing us to learn more about all the importance of sleep. So get yourself to a Sleep Number store. They're all over the country. Or go visit sleepnumber.com online. Tyler just made a funny face, so I think your sleep score is pretty whack. What was it?
Yeah, 53, not good.
Oh.
Yeah, not good.
How you feeling today?
Okay, I only had 4 hours. No, sorry. I was in bed for 5 hours, 25 minutes. I had 4 hours and 1 minute of restful sleep, 36 minutes of restless sleep. But I'm looking at my circadian rhythm recently is not good.
Not great.
Like 11:50 and wake up time is 4:30. So not much time.
Yeah.
I got to extend that rhythm a little bit.
Dude, you're old now. You can't be doing that.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk a little bit about, in our books review today, we're going to talk a little bit about dreams. And where they come from and what they're all about. So,
all right.
Anyway, get yourself to Sleep Number or sleepnumber.com. All right, to the book. 3 ways dopamine allows you to dominate your world. We're going to talk about 3 ways that dopamine can be helpful. Number 1, it allows you to act and strategize on the urges that you have. So from the book, desired dopamine makes us want things. It is a source of raw desire. Give me more. But we're not at the ungoverned mercy of our desire. We also have a complementary dopamine circuit that calculates what sort of more is worth having. It gives us the ability to construct plans, to strategize and dominate the world around us to get the things that we want. Urges come from dopamine passing through the mesolimbic circuit, which we call the dopamine desire circuit. Calculation and planning, the means of dominating situations, come from the mesocortical circuit, which we will call the dopamine control circuit. Why call it the control circuit? Because its purpose is to manage the uncontrolled urges of desired dopamine, to take that raw energy and guide it toward profitable ends. Also, by using abstract concepts and forward-looking strategies, it allows us to gain control of the world around us and dominate our environment. In addition, the dopamine control circuit is a source of imagination. It lets us peer into the future to see the consequences of decisions we might make right now, and thus allow us to choose which future we prefer. Finally, it gives us the ability to plan how to make that imaginary future a reality. Like the desire circuit, which only cares about things we do not have, controlled dopamine works in the unreal world of the possible. The The two circuits begin in the same place, but the desire circuit ends in a part of the brain that triggers excitement and enthusiasm, while the control circuit goes to the frontal lobes, a part of the brain that specializes in logical thinking. So that's how dopamine, you think about the urge, you've used this example before, the donuts at the office, and they're just sitting there just enticing. So that desire dopamine says, you need a donut. Go grab a donut.
Yeah.
But the control, the logical dopamine kicks in that moment. Hopefully it kicks in that moment for you and says, and the logical thing comes out and says, I don't really need that.
Yeah.
And that's what allows you, whether you want to act on an urge or not act on an urge, it's the two dopamine systems combining in your head and acting against each other.
Yeah, and I think too, even just like if you're having goals, right? And we're in an age right now that we see someone else do something and like, oh, that's awesome. Like, I'd love to do that, right? And there's that initial dopamine hit that is like, all right, yeah. Okay, so what do I need to do? That's why, like, so many people you talk about have all these ideas. Like, they want to do something, But then what happens is you let that kind of run rampant right off the start, but then that controlled dopamine hits and it's like, all right, logic, okay? Like, right. What's the reality that I'm going to quit my job, buy an RV, and drive around the country? Logically, right? Is that going to happen? And if it is, what do I have to do to make that happen?
Right.
I've got to, put my 4 kids up for adoption in order for that to happen. But I mean, you know what I mean? So I get that. I think, and again, you're probably going to get into more of like, okay, now how do you take that, right, and use it and like actually go dominate something? Because I get it. Like, there's certain things, like for me, it's so weird. Like for me, work-wise, right? How do I utilize this dopamine effect and like help me go dominate the job that I'm in? If I am just constantly just like going through the process and doing it, like I don't ever get that dopamine spike that's going to help me like get excited and motivated. For me, what it is there's 2 ways. And we're in commercial real estate, so a lot of it is like, okay, half of our job is active projects that we're working on things that, and the other half is business development. The active stuff is all the stuff that we've done business development wise the last 3 to 5 years, or now we're actually working on projects. So for me, there's 2 ways. One is, okay, hey, I need to look at every single project that I've got. What's the opportunity? What's my close date? What are the things that are needed? What are the steps? Like, really dig into those, and I'll get that dopamine hit. Like, all right, cool. Like, I'm close to this one, and this one. Like, I've got to push these across the line. I've got to get these things wrapped up. And then on the other side, it's, okay, which prospects have I touched base with? What companies have I had conversations with? What is my messaging? And both of those, like, will get that dopamine hit. But then there's that control aspect of it. Like, okay, now what do I actually need to do to make these a reality? But if I'm just like constantly doing, or I'm just like picking up the phone and calling or sending emails, like, to me, like, that's just like that routine. You've got to get yourself a hit of that dopamine.
Yeah, and not to oversimplify, but the people that dominate are the ones that are able to act on the urges. That a lot of us are all Americans in our heads. Yeah, we have these big dreams, desires, goals. There's a line in one of my favorite movies, and it's his ambition far exceeded his talent. And I think that applies here. That, at night you're sitting there dreaming about your future and dreaming about all the things you accomplish. And then in the morning, all that motivation's gone. That dopamine's gone. Perfect
example. I'm sorry to cut you off because I think you're on a roll here. But I love looking at land. Like, I love looking at like big parcels of land. Like, I could seriously sit on it every single night and I could spend hours. But the reality is, I'm super excited that night, but then I wake up the next morning and nothing has been done. No progress is made. Right. So finish your point on.
Well, I was just saying that desire dopamine is doing a good job of getting you excited about it. Yeah. But you need to follow that up with action if it's something that you truly want to go after. And that's the difference between the people that are successful and the people that, are living more of an average life. Yeah. Is the ones that are successful, they're able to act on those desires. That really is what it comes down to, is taking action. We've talked about this before. I love consuming information. Yeah. Like, it's fun. The dopamine hit for me is the consumption of new ideas, new things I had never learned before. And all that's great. That's great that I'm well studied and I like to research and I like to study and do those things. That's great. But if I never do anything with it, what really ultimately good is that doing for me?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think what people miss is they just wish and want. And when you're in that, we'll call it a high, right? Your dopamine high is in that moment, you've got to make a decision that like, okay, first step is putting this down on paper, writing it out, what that goal is. And while you're excited about it, while you're going through that feeling is, okay, now let's say, okay, what are the steps that I need in building a plan, putting it on paper so that you have something tangible. Like that's first steps. Like if I just was like, yeah, dude, I want to go buy 500 acres in, Northeast Texas. I would love to do that. It's like, cool. How am I going to do that?
Right.
Okay. Is it bringing in partners? Is it raising money? Is it saving money? Is it, what does it look like? Is it going out driving and actually finding better deals? Like, what is it that I've actually got to do to like be able to do it? If I don't have it written down and I don't have a plan, someone like myself, and I'm just speaking to myself, if I don't have like the steps laid out for me, whether I create them or someone else creates them, then it's really hard to actually go implement.
That's right. Yeah, the great ones are able to act on those urges that dopamine provides. Number 2, it keeps you pushing for more, regardless what you have already accomplished. So from the book. Just as desired dopamine facilitates becoming addicted to drugs, chasing the high and receiving less and less dopamine buzz from it, some people have so much control dopamine that they become addicted to the achievement, but are unable to experience H&N fulfillment, here now fulfillment. Think of people you know who work relentlessly toward their goals, but never stop to enjoy the fruits of their achievements. They achieve something, then move on to the next thing. These individuals exhibit the effects of an imbalance between future-focused dopamine and present-focused here and now neurotransmitters. They flee the emotional and sensory experience of the present. For them, life is about the future, about improvement, about innovation. No matter how much they do, it's never enough. You ever known those type of people?
There's 2 of them sitting right here.
Yeah.
For sure.
What a burden.
Possibly 3.
What a burden. I mean, I guess it's a good thing, right? Constantly pushing for more, wanting to achieve, but it can also be a burden.
Yeah.
Because you're never satisfied.
Yeah.
You're never allowing the time to appreciate what you have.
Yeah.
Constantly feeding and feeding that desire of, I got to do more. I got to do more. And again, that's a great thing. Or it can be a great thing. Can be a great thing.
Yeah.
But it can also drive you to some pretty dark places.
It's like you said, it's a strategy that I feel like is unsustainable, because if you don't stop and recognize the value of all the hard work that you've put in and appreciate it, it's really hard to get remotivated again, right? It's that law of diminishing return. It's like, okay, I'm going to work really hard, keep working. And then you just become a robot and just keep working until you take a step back and you say, okay, hey, I have killed myself, and I am starting to see the fruits of those labors. And if I don't actually bask in the results of that hard work, how are you going to get excited to get up every single morning? And like you said, take you to those dark places when your identity becomes based on your performance, when your value as a person is on what you can bring to other people. Like, that's not what it is. That's an unsustainable model until you say, okay, hey, look, I'm going to pause, and I've worked really hard. I'm going to appreciate it, but then I'm also going to share it with someone else. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm going to share in, let other people come join in the celebration of the gifts that I've been given or worked for, or however you look at it. And to me, that is where the people that I look at, I'm like, okay, that's the life that I want. Like, that is someone that has it figured out, is someone that says, okay, hey, look, I'm not just going to work all the time. Mm-hmm. There's a period where I've got to work, and that's going to take a lot of my time. But at some point, you've got to say, okay, hey, look, I've got to pause. I've got to, 1, recharge, but then 2, I've got to like look around and appreciate the gifts that I've got around me.
Yeah. Yeah. And obviously we're all a little bit different in the way that we go about this. And maybe for some people, maybe you are a constant seeker of improvement and this does bring you joy, and you do appreciate it. But I would imagine that's rare. That's more rare than the norm.
Yeah.
And so, it's that, being mindful of never appreciating what you have, and constantly seeking for. We see this in the work environment, and it manifests itself in ways of unhealthy physical health, right? You're so driven to be better, to make money. You're so driven to accomplish that next promotion. You're so driven, to work long hours, and all that's great. Good for you. But what are you sacrificing on the back end? For me personally, I made the decision that it's not worth my physical health to pursue business success at all costs.
Yeah.
Maybe for you, that's worth. Maybe you listen to this and that is worth it to you. Go for it. I'm not judging. That's up to you. For me personally, I made the decision that, yes, I'm going to work hard. Yes, I'm going to put my best effort. But I'm also going to be mindful that I am a father of 2 young children. I'm a husband. There's other aspects of my life that I want to put value towards and that I want to be really great at.
Yep.
So I'm okay sacrificing a little bit in business so that I'm still a good contributor outside of business.
Yeah, and I think the question is in long term, how much are you actually sacrificing in business? Are you going to long term be more productive?
Right. Taking care of that physical health.
And you talk about health, right? And it's not just, hey, I'm gonna shut it down and I'm gonna go take care of my health. I'm gonna work out. I'm gonna eat right. I'm gonna do those things. Just the terrible side effects that are associated with stress. If you are constantly fed by stress, there's a reason that we're designed to have this emotion and this feeling of stress is to motivate us to keep going, right? To flee from where we don't want to be, and that stressful situation that will get us to where we want to go. That's great, but that's not an unending source, right? And that's where when you have used that stress hormone, that stress reaction, when you've used that over and over and over, that's when you start to literally see direct correlations, stress to health. I mean, we had Courtney Runyon on.
I was just going to say that the scenario is a little different.
And that's not everybody, right?
But the overall, to the basic level of it, the stress was inducing very, very physical, very harmful physical, paralysis. And as soon as she got rid of that stress, she said within days she started to feel better.
Yeah.
And so if that's you and you're pushing yourself to that limit of stress because you're constantly seeking more and you're constantly after that next dopamine hit, just know that it can manifest its way into some unhealthy.
And then this goes for multiple. This isn't business. This isn't, moms feel this. They have to be the perfect mom. Their kids have to be perfect here. The house has to be this. All of these things trying to make sure that everyone around them sees how perfect they are. That is a constant stress. Kids trying to perform at school, trying to perform at sports, trying to perform for their parents, for their friends, all these things. That's constant stress. So just, again, be very, very conscious of taking a pause and appreciating where you actually are at.
That's right. And then number 3, and we talk about, detaching, being emotionally detached from situations allows you to make more logical. And we're going through this with my 5-year-old right now. He'll get super upset. We'll play soccer in the backyard, for instance. And if he's ever losing, he starts to get frantic, upset. He's super competitive. And it starts to factor in his decision-making as he's playing. And it starts to hinder his performance. And so we talk about the ability to be able to detach and use your logical brain to be able to make better decisions. And that's what this number 3, it allows the individual to do it. Dopamine allows the individual to detach. So some people are naturally better at suppressing emotion than others. In fact, they're born that way, in part because of the number and nature of their dopamine receptors, molecules in the brain that react when dopamine is released. They differ based on genetics. Researchers measured the density of dopamine receptors in the brains of a variety of people and compared the results to tests that measured the person's emotional detachment. The scientists found a direct relationship between receptor density and personal engagement. High density was associated with high level of emotional detachment. Most people have personalities that fall somewhere between the highest and lowest scores on the detachment scale. We're neither aloof nor overly nurturing. How we react depends on the circumstances. If we're engaged with the parapersonal, up close and direct contact, focused and in the present moment, here and now circuits are activated. and the warm emotional aspects of our personality come out. When we're engaged in the extrapersonal, at a distance, thinking abstractly, focused on the future, the rational, emotionless parts of our personalities are more likely to be seen. So that was interesting to me. The more dopamine receptors, the higher the density, the more detached you're able to become, emotionless. That sounds negative, but it just means you're not going to get as wired or as your emotions aren't going to take you as off on tangents when in times of frustration, times of stress.
Yeah, sometimes
you're able to control the situation a little bit
It's
better.
powerful to be able to look at yourself from a third person perspective, right?
Yes.
Say, okay, hold on, how am I reacting right now? Is this reaction, emotion going to help me achieve my goal? Is because sometimes, everybody knows those people that live in their own world. Nothing they do is wrong. It's everybody else's fault.
Right.
It's out of their control. It's like, hold on, let me take a look. Let me look at myself like I'm 10 feet above. I'm looking down. Okay, what kind of joker am I being right now?
Yeah. So little did you know those people have low density of dopamine receptors.
I didn't know that's why.
I think of Jocko as somebody who has high. If you just listen to his podcast, you read his books, emotion very rarely plays a role in his decision making. So he's somebody you think of that's stoic, that's controlled through the chaos. So apparently he's somebody that has that high density, and that benefits him in times of stress. That's why he's such a great leader. Yeah. Because he's able to think rationally. He's able to remove himself. And anytime you remove from something, it makes the decision-making process easier. So to wrap that up, that section up, the 3 ways dopamine allows you to dominate your world. From the book, it says, the dopamine system as a whole evolved to maximize future resources. In addition to desire and motivation, which get the ball rolling, we also possess a more sophisticated circuit that gives us the ability to think long-term, make plans, and use abstract concepts such as math, reason, and logic. Looking into the longer-term future also gives us the tenacity we need to overcome challenges and accomplish things that take a long time, things like getting an education or flying to the moon. It also gives us the ability to tame the hedonistic urges of the desire circuit, suppressing immediate gratification to achieve something better. Thank God for dopamine.
Yeah.
And so now the next section is all about creativity and the balance between being super creative, but also how it can lead to madness. And we're not going to get as much into that in this section. You can go read the book if you want. But it's just a fascinating, the creative people, the artistic people have a little bit of madness sprinkled in there as well.
Yeah.
And so it opens up with 2 ways that dopamine helps us make sense of our world. It says the creative mind is the most, hold on. So one way to do it is through modeling, making models of situations so that we have something that makes sense to us for future reference. And so one of those ways is modeling. And from the book, it says, models are imaginary representations of the world that we build in order to better understand it. Models contain only the elements of the environment that the model builder believes are essential. Other details are discarded. That makes the world easier to comprehend and later to imagine a variety of ways it might be manipulated for maximum benefits. Models not only simplify our conception of the world, they also allow us to abstract, to take specific experiences and use them to craft broad general rules. From this, we can predict that and deal with situations we've never encountered before. And one of the examples they use, you don't ever have to have driven a Ferrari to be able to make sense in your mind what it would be like to go fast, to drive that Ferrari. It's a mechanism in your brain to allow you to make good decisions based on it's just a simplification basically of, I don't have to have experienced that situation myself. This is what, based on past experience, this is what it'll be like. So it just allows them to make sense of that. And then number 2 is mental time travel. It says models can be helpful when we need to choose among a number of different options. They allow us to run through different scenarios in our imagination in order to select the best one. This process is called mental time travel. Using imagination, we project ourselves into various possible futures, mentally experience them, then decide how we're going to get the most out of what we see, how we're going to maximize our resources. Mental time travel is in constant use because it is the mechanism for making every conscious choice in life. To the brain, each deliberate choice about the future is a matter of the dopamine system and the models it has created. Mental time travel is responsible for every next step in our lives. Thought that was interesting. Any thoughts on that? Mental time travel.
I just think of Back to the Future and then Avengers Endgame. But no, I mean, it's true though, right? It's taking yourself to that place, putting yourself in that, and then the creativity that it takes. What I think though is that helps motivate, that's great. And back to the Ferrari example, it's like how many times do we like visualize something and put ourselves in the future or put ourselves in the seat of that Ferrari or whatever? And usually when you get there, it's not what you make it out to be.
Right.
So, I mean, I think it's good. I think we just got to be careful of where we put ourselves in the future, what the consequences of our actions, all that, like all of those things that like are exciting and fun. Like I talk about this land deal, like same deal, like picture myself out with the boys working on the land, like all of those things, right? Like 5 years from now, we've got big old ranch somewhere, and it's like, yeah, that's awesome.
Well, and the reason that's exciting, that's part of the mental time travel.
That's right.
You're imagining yourself in a future where you do have this land, you are making these social connections, your family, you're raising your family. That's part of what motivates you to take that action of going and purchasing that land. Is because, no, you've never experienced that in your life. You've never had your own piece of land, but you're imagining a better future through mental time travel as they use it. And that's what's going to help you accomplish that goal, is because you're putting yourself in that situation, forward thinking, and that's what drives you. That's what drives your ambition. Fitness is the same way. We imagine a better body. We imagine low body fat percentage. We imagine a stronger body. We imagine being able to play with our kids. That's what gets us through that Tuesday morning cold weather workout. When it doesn't feel like it's something we should want to do.
That's right.
That's what helps us get there, is that mental time travel.
Allowing
us to see a better future. And that's what that dopamine is helping us to do. Now we get into the dreams. I thought this was, it's kind of random, but at the same time, it was just fascinating. So I thought I wanted to throw that in there. It says dreams where creativity and madness mingle. Thought this was interesting. So few of us are geniuses or madmen, but we all have experienced the midpoint in this continuum, dreams. Dreams are similar to abstract thought in that they work with material taken from the external world, but they arrange the material in ways that are unconstrained by physical reality. Abstract, detached from the real world of the senses, dreams are dopaminergic. As the German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer wrote, dreams are brief madness and madness a long dream. Dopamine is unleashed during dreaming, freed from the restraining influence of the reality-focused here and now neurotransmitters. Activity in the here and now circuits is suppressed because sensory input from the outside world into the brain is blocked. This freedom allows dopamine circuits to generate the bizarre connections that are the hallmark of dreams. The trivial, the unnoticed, and the odd can be elevated to positions of prominence, supplying us with the new ideas that otherwise would have been impossible to discover. I thought that was so fascinating. Basically, dreams remove the governor of logical thinking. You're allowed to explore the wildest thoughts that are inside your head through dream. I mean, think about the latest dream you had and how little sense it made.
Sure.
Because you're not restrained by reality. You can literally accomplish anything in a dream.
Yeah. My last one actually was pretty realistic.
That's the weird thing, is some of them are realistic.
I know.
And then others, it's like I have a rabbit head and a lion body and I'm running around chasing. It's just weird how dreams work. It's so fascinating.
But that's interesting. Like the here and now receptors are shut off because, it's.
Well, because the here and now is designed to
now.
Bring you back to reality.
But what's interesting is like, that's why it's so hard to recognize why you're in a dream when you're in a dream that I'm in a dream, there's been very few times where I'm like, there's no restrictions, right? I can do whatever I want.
I can be whatever I want. Do whatever I want.
Because in the dream, it feels like, okay, hey, I'm still thinking and acting like I would if I'm still if I'm awake. But yeah, there's a few times where it's like, oh, and then I always wake up.
Yeah.
It's like, Because I think that now, like when you probably turn that side on, like your body's like, oh, wait a minute. We need to wake up. Because if we're using that side of the brain, we need to be awake.
Dreams are, back in the day, they used to, was it dream tellers or dream, like Bible times?
Yeah.
They would have people come interpret dreams.
Yeah.
Because they thought there was a link between have you ever had a dream that ended up?
Yeah, well, I mean,
at least parts of it
like
ended up
deja
coming.
vu
Yeah.
almost, right? Like something will happen. Like, okay, I know that I dreamt about this.
Yeah.
Like I know, like I don't know if there's ever something where I'm like had a dream, write it down, and then it actually comes true.
Right.
I don't know if there's that, but like there's times after the fact something will happen. Like, okay, I know that I've been here. Like, did I have a dream about this at one point?
Yeah, I'm wondering if, and I'm sure there's research on this, but like dream therapy. I wonder if that's a thing where, you dream something, you write it down immediately, and then that's part of your manifestation of accomplishing whatever it is that you're after and how that works. That's interesting. But if you're ever wondering why dreams are so crazy, it's because your brain is shutting off the logical part of your brain.
That's good.
And letting that dopamine just run free and run wild. So thought that was interesting. And then lastly, as great as creativity is, it can come at a cost. And so from the book, dopamine gives us the power to create. It allows us to imagine the unreal and connect with the seemingly unrelated. It allows us to build mental models of the world that transcend mere physical description, moving beyond sensory impressions to uncover the deeper meaning of what we experience. But that power comes at a cost. The hyperactive dopamine systems of creative geniuses put them at risk of mental illness. Sometimes the world of the unreal breaks through its natural bounds, creating paranoia, delusions, and the feverish excitement of manic behavior. In addition, heightened dopaminergic activity may overwhelm the H&N systems, hampering one's ability to form human relationships and navigate the day-to-day world of reality. For some, it doesn't matter. The joy of creation is the most intense joy they know. Whether they are artists, scientists, prophets, or entrepreneurs, whatever their calling, they never stop working. What they care about most is their passion for creation, discovery, or enlightenment. They never relax, never stop to enjoy the good things they have. Instead, they're obsessed with building the future that never arrives. Because when the future becomes the present, enjoying it requires activation of the quote-unquote touchy-feely H&N chemicals. And that's something highly dopaminergic people dislike and avoid. They serve the public well, but no matter how rich, famous, or successful they become, they're almost never happy, certainly never satisfied. Evolutionary forces that promote the survival of the species produce these special people. Nature drives them to sacrifice their own happiness for the sake of bringing into the new world ideas and innovations that benefit the rest of us.
Right. Those are the Elon Musk.
Yes, I was just to say the first person I think of when I think of that is Elon Musk. And you watch his documentaries on Netflix, and I'm sure he finds joy in life. I'm sure he's happy, but just watching him, it's almost like a burden how intelligent he is, and how driven he is, and how hardworking he is.
Grinding,
all the time. I mean, he is the exact person that this segment is talking about. He is so dopaminergic, which drives him to be the richest man documented, in the world. Those Saudis are pretty rich, though. Yeah. But the most documented, wealthiest person in the world. So that's great. On paper, that's awesome. But think about the things that he's had to sacrifice over the years. Doesn't he have 9 or 10 different kids from 4 or 5 different, so relationships are probably difficult. He's constantly working all the time. And again, if that's you, good for you. Go for it. But I'm glad I'm not wired that way. I'm glad I'm not built that way.
Yeah.
So.
Me too.
That's it, man. That's that section. Any closing thoughts?
That's good. I mean, that provides a lot of clarity around certain things, right? And why and how and what. I think it's important to call into these levels of creativity. Because that's how you differentiate yourself. Like if you are just very rigid and you don't allow that type of, that type of activation of the brain, I think you become very just one-sided. And look, not everybody is meant to do that. But if you want to differentiate yourself, you have to think differently. I mean, our world is changing so fast. You have to be able to come up with something that is different, is a different twist, is more efficient. That's how this world continues to evolve. And if you're staying the same, the world is just moving really fast. It's hard to keep up with it.
Yeah. Has the last couple of years of doing this podcast and speaking to so many different people, all successful people, in their own right, whatever they do, has it changed your opinion on how you go about living your life? Has it changed your methods at all? Has it changed your perspective and how you approach how you live your life?
It has because reality is the people that have the quote unquote success are doers. They get it done. They go do it. But part of that is that they go and do this creative side. They actually sit and create space to think and be creative as well, right? Like it's intentional. They're intentional. That's what all of these people are doing, whether they're in the nonprofit space, whether in the business sector, whether in the, they're an athlete, whether they're military, whatever it is, they're very intentional about what they're doing. And that involves, like I said, the creative side, the physical, actually going and executing, and then the relational side. Like they're very intentional about all of those.
Yeah, I'd say it's made me less judgmental. And what I mean by that is I used to have a very rigid opinion of how to go about, balancing the different components of your life, business, family, things like that. And I used to think there's a certain best way to do it.
Yeah.
The last few years and then reading this book has made me realize, has opened my eyes to, is what makes me happy doesn't necessarily need to make Tyler happy.
That's right.
Or make Scott happy or whoever we're talking to. What makes them happy doesn't need to necessarily make me happy. And so maybe I would judge, previously I would judge the guy that's working 90 hours a week and constantly on the grind and look at his life in shambles. But for that person, maybe they find purpose behind that. Maybe that is their drive. Maybe that is where they find their true joy is through work. And if they're single and they don't have any kids and nobody's, being sacrificed because of it, awesome. It's just made me less judgmental in that respect of you can find joy through hard work. In fact, I would argue that's one of the greatest places to find joy is through hard work.
Yeah.
And for some people, their purpose truly is, maybe they're a business owner and they're employing 300 people. And their purpose and passion for why they work 90 hours a week is making sure that 300 families have an income. And so to sit there and demonize that, what I used to do, is ignorant.
Yeah.
That person is providing a whole lot of joy and a lot of purpose in this life. Yeah, maybe they're sacrificing their own a little bit, but who am I to sit there and judge that person?
That's right.
They are providing so much for those 300 families.
That's good.
And the quote-unquote balance argument, what I think is balance and what I find joy out of, that's insignificant to the next person.
Yeah.
Find whatever you want. Find whatever works for you. I think that's one of the biggest things.
Yeah, you have a choice, right? And it's your choice how you want to live. What I don't have a ton of patience for, and I've been guilty of saying this too, is if you're in a place and you don't like it, choose not to stay there.
Right.
Don't complain about it and don't do nothing about it.
Right. Take action.
So if you're a CEO and you're like, I hate this, like I don't want to spend any more time here, it's ruining my family, it's ruining this, then don't.
Yeah.
It's your choice.
Find purpose and passion somewhere else.
That's right. Like there's a difference between purpose and obligation, right? Like if you feel obligated to do it, it's hard to muster up motivation to be great.
Right.
And if there's just an obligation, like, cause I have to do it, you don't.
Yeah.
You have a choice.
Yeah. Yeah. I was listening to a podcast today and it was actually Andy's, and he was talking about how people always, like, he'll get DMs and people are like, why don't you ever take vacation? Why don't you ever travel? Why don't you ever go? And he said, because this is like, my work is my vacation. This is where I find happiness. This is where I find my joy, is by coming in these buildings every day, seeing all these people that we're getting to impact. So I don't need to take a vacation to relax myself or to find my purpose. And I just thought that was an eye-opener, because I do see vacation and things like that being valuable. I do, personally.
Yeah.
But that shouldn't discredit the fact that somebody else may not see it that way and may see their business as... Now, again, that may be a justification. I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and judge that.
Yeah.
But I just thought that was an interesting take on
Agreed.
the people that work super hard. Maybe that is where they find their joy. That's
right.
Purpose. So anyway, that was just a random thought
good,
on the
man.
end of this. But
Good section.
Next week, we're going to talk about how dopamine is going to actually ultimately end humanity. So tune in for that.
Cliffhanger.
The constant need for more is actually what's going to be our undoing.
All right.
So tune in for that episode. Hope you guys enjoyed today's. Again, go back and listen to parts 1 and parts 2. The book is The Molecule of More, How a Single Chemical in Your Brain Drives Love, Sex, and Creativity and Will Determine the Fate of the Human Race. Very fascinating.
When are we going to talk about sex?
That was sort of in the love section.
We didn't talk
Kind
about
of
much
skipped
sex.
it a little bit.
Yeah.
So go read it. Go pick up the book yourself. $20. Go pick it up yourself if you want to read about sex.
Awesome.
Appreciate you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed today. Please help us by sharing these episodes, leaving us a 5-star rating and review on whatever platform you listen to. Follow us on Instagram at one.shot.pod. Go subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hopefully the Saturday suffering went out last week. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that.
Yeah.
You enjoyed seeing our suffering. We're going to do that again here coming up in August. A little bit different workout, but
Same concept, same idea.
There will be more suffering to be had.
Yes, same ultimate result of suffering.
So again, hopefully you guys enjoyed that. And have a great rest of the week, great rest of the weekend, and we will see you next week.